Thank you so much for joining us here on AccuWeather Weekend. I'm Bree.
And I'm Constanzer. We're still talking about what is left behind after Debbie. We know the storm created more than 9 fatalities, or at least 9 fatalities, I should say. And in its wake, we're still dealing with the cleanup.
Yeah, exactly. Debbie's still a problem here, especially along the East Coast, though it's not the only player in town. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, we do want to start you off with a quick look at satellite and radar, just to kind of get a feel of what's happening right now here across the country.
And you can see where the action is. Again, Debbie's moisture at least well removed into Canada, but there's still that tail of moisture right along the East Coast.
Yeah, still tracking a few spotty thunderstorms, especially there across the southeast coast, particularly through the Carolinas. Heads up, a little stormy right now in the areas like the Outer Banks, though we do still have a few wet showers here across parts of the New England coast. Though back further west, we have some trouble, and unfortunately, some of these storms could turn a little gusty.
Yeah, those thunderstorms are still on the stronger side here, coming out of the high plains and moving into some of the central plains, even across Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma. There'll be a bit of a factor potentially to come in the tropics. We're watching it for the 12th through the 14th, so it's not going to be taking place right now, but there is a tropical wave we're keeping an eye on, so you do want to make sure you're using some caution out there and paying attention to those forecasts still to come, because they will be changing undoubtedly as we go through the upcoming days into next week. First up, here is this tropical wave that we're monitoring. We're in the middle of the Atlantic. This is South America, by the way, down here, and as you work your way to the coast of Africa. So we are well out into the Atlantic here, far away from the U.S. as we watch that tropical wave. Still dealing with some of those oranges in the cloud tops there. It's got a lot of warm water that it's over top of. I know the anomaly not really showing up right now, but basically this storm system is going to develop here. You have to ask yourself why it wouldn't develop this time of year, because we know there's a lot of warm water out there. Typically, there's a lot of moisture, so we look for any kind of dry air. And you'll note where it is headed to, it is trying to work its way towards some dry air, but the problem is it's kind of in its own little bubble of moisture, and it's just going to keep taking that bubble off towards the west. So we won't really find it encountering the dry air. So we've got the warm water, we've got the moisture, lack of dry air there, so we're not going to be dealing with that. The question is wind shear. Currently, it is still under quite a bit of wind shear, especially on its southern side here as we follow it across the Atlantic. So when it continues to move, it will find more of a lightened wind shear environment, getting closer and closer to the Caribbean. That is the area that we expect it to do some developing. So as we talk about and likely lead to the development here. So not very much organization as we go through this weekend. As we track it out then into early next week, it becomes a bit more favorable for development as we work our way a little bit farther towards the actual islands itself. That's when we're expecting that development. So it should, there's still some question marks with this, but it's all going to be that jet stream as we go into the end of the upcoming week. So we're still going to have to forecast that jet stream heading into the upcoming Friday to determine where this storm will end up. All right, let's talk about what else is going on across. It has finally left the U.S. At least 9 people, though, have lost their lives in connection with the storm, which first made landfall Monday morning in Florida's Big Bend area as a Category 1 hurricane. The system then made a second landfall early Thursday morning as a tropical storm near Bulls Bay, South Carolina. The Northeast also dealt with Debbie on Friday. All along the East Coast, Debbie has left widespread impacts from flooding, rain, and storm surge to damaging winds and tornadoes. And beyond the human toll, Debbie has led to some major economic impacts, too, as AccuWeather Chief Meteorologist John Porter explains. And you can tell all that rain did. It left a lot of water in place. We're talking more than 18 inches of rain, so that's 1.5 feet of rain that's come down in some spots just as we've gone through the past couple of days. So this has really been a challenge, and we are going to be adding in a little bit more rain still to come. There could still be some residual issues with flooding in these areas as we talk about Debbie's former path coming through the weekend to states like Tennessee. Yeah, there's always a little bit of relief found here in Nashville when we get that relief coming in. It's 84 degrees for that high, partly sunny skies there. 96 though still in Montgomery, and you can see Raleigh 93 degrees, a bit steamy there. Same thing for Jacksonville as we deal with some of those showers and thunderstorms. Transitioning then, stepping into your Sunday, still dealing with that bout of rain. It's hugging mostly the coast and threat for thunderstorms in Jacksonville, and even tomorrow we could still have the chance for some more rain in Raleigh. This is what it looks like as we take you through time. Again, holding on to this boundary right along the coast. Florida, you're still underneath that, so you're still in that warm, steamy air mass, which never really goes away throughout this course of the summer. As we transition through Sunday morning, still getting those showers and thunderstorms to populate throughout the afternoon and into the evening hours before they die down. Charleston, just a quick peek at the week ahead. We'll keep that chance. Well, taking you into the northern tier of the nation. We're no stranger to flooding here, but thankfully not dealing with any of it. Just a low pressure system kind of hanging around the Great Lakes. That's going to keep some extra clouds, a few cool showers, kind of a cooler feel for this time of year. Welcome to fall. We've gotten a taste of it. Temperatures below historical average, and you can see some of those showers still venturing out into the high plains as we head into Sunday morning, but they never really make it all that far. We'll keep it mostly contained to the high plains as we talk about that risk for showers and thunderstorms right through a lot of the weekend here. So for the most part, across the central U.S., we are dry. Des Moines.
Well, thank you so much for sticking with us here on AccuWeather Weekend. A lot of the big story over this past week has surrounded Debbie and Debbie's second landfall. It's devastating just to hear these stories, to see this video coming in. Cannot imagine just your whole life or even just your home being destroyed in a matter of a day or so. So, of course, our thoughts are with those who are being impacted by this flooding from Debbie, and we still have flooding concerns here as we do head throughout this weekend. Now we're focusing on river and stream flooding because any water that falls, because we are still tracking thunderstorms in and around this zone, could exacerbate these issues. So please, heads up, never drive through those flooded areas or roadways. Do what you just heard. Turn around, don't drown. It's never worth it. Now, we are really concerned about some low-lying and poor drainage areas, and if you are maybe traveling out to the beach or, well, after Debbie unloaded buckets and buckets of rain across a lot of the eastern seaboard into the northeast, well, we get a comfortable weekend behind it, which is good news. I'm sure you were excited to see some sunshine there, even as we headed through Saturday. Sunday, not looking so bad either. We are still tracking those low humidity levels, so if you want to get out and about, take a longer walk, maybe do some exercising, I think it's going to be a good weekend to do so for you. We still have that lingering flooding threat here, especially for areas that are still very saturated. So if you do encounter any flooding there on the ground, on the roadways, please don't try to walk through or drive through those areas. Turn around, don't drown. Highs mainly in the 70s here this weekend across the Ohio Valley, though as we do head into Sunday, we are tracking some gusty showers here across the Great Lakes, even possible here throughout the interior northeast as well. Brief downpours, but overall, a lot of us will dodge those raindrops. When we look at the numbers, like I said, we're running in the 70s from Detroit to Pittsburgh. That's a few degrees below where we typically are for this time of year. Though you'll note that temperatures do cool down as we do head into Monday. With that, we'll have some cloud cover there as well. Over these next 7 days, areas like Pittsburgh staying in the 70s.
As we look at our tropical setup for this 2024 Atlantic hurricane season, we've already gone through 4 names on the list. Ernesto is next, and we may find Ernesto as we go through the upcoming week. What we're watching here is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame in the Atlantic through portions of the northeastern Caribbean. As you look towards the Windward, Leeward Islands, that's where we're expecting some development potential. It is likely to develop as we head through this week. It is this tropical wave that we're monitoring here in the central Atlantic. So you can see South America on the bottom part of your screen, African coastline here. There's another tropical wave beyond that, but we're focusing on this one first because obviously it's a bit closer to home. And one of the things that we look for this time of year is if there's anything that could stop a tropical system from developing. Cold water, we don't have any of that. It's all warm. Wind shear, we'll talk about that. And if we can get any dry air working its way on in. Currently, the water vapor shows you the moisture is around not only just the center of this area, but also kind of encapsulating the whole entire thing. So we don't have a lot of dry air coming into the back of it. That means it's going to take its moisture bubble with it. Even though it's headed towards areas with a lot of dry air, it probably stays in a little envelope of moist air and doesn't really get impacted by that dry air. So this means It's a little bit more likely to develop since it doesn't have to contend with dry air. The only other thing we have going for us is if there's wind shear. And currently there is. The dark purple will show you where there is quite a bit of wind shear, but where it's headed, there's not a lot of wind shear, which is why we do think this storm will develop as we go through the early week with those more favorable conditions.